While attending school at Michigan Tech, I see many different types of computers and people that are arguably way too into them. I know our school uses 3 major operating systems: Windows, Mac, and Linux. And personally, I don't really know what Linux is about. My interest in Linux came from a quick conversation with my friend John Rush one day. Earlier that day, I'd been wondering what operating system they used in the math labs. I assumed it must be Linux because I did not recognize the structure of Fedora to be similar to Windows or Mac. Later that evening, I asked him a seemingly simple question. I asked if Linux was some sort of mix of Windows and Mac. When I said this, he seemed to look offended and quickly replied that Mac is a mix of Windows and Linux. The way he took offense in this simple question helped me realize that I do not know a lot about this system, and I should learn more. I talked to John a little bit more about Linux, and he gave me somewhat of an understanding of the system. From the conversation, I learned that the Linux operating system is known as free and open source. This, however, means absolutely nothing to me. As a consequence, I searched on Wikipedia for some quick information. Here I learned that free and open source meant that it can be copied and modified, and these modifications are then copied by others who can modify them even more to design the operating system around their purpose of use. I learned that Linux supports many programming languages, which must be the reason it's used in computer science labs. Also, I learned that free and open source operating system, first called Unix, was envisioned and implemented in 1960s and released in 1970. Linux thereafter was created separately in the 90s, but it was created using the same principles. So, because it's been around for 30 years and I've only heard of it while coming to Michigan Tech, I decided I had to look to more sources to get a better understanding. First, I looked to academic sources to give me benefits and what Linux is. I learned a lot of the same things from most of them, and a lot of the articles were hard to read. From the hard-to-read articles that I looked at, Judy Silver's Linux on the Horizon and Kath Everett's Linux Cute and Cuddly, I learned that Linux is inexpensive and it's on the rise in big business. But from searching more, I found 2 articles that gave me a lot of information. What You Should Know About Linux and Why It Matters by Lawrence Gold, and Is Linux in Your Future by Paul Bleacher. They gave me a brief overview of Linux beginnings. Linux is free, Unix-like operating system developed by Linus Torvalds while he was a student at University of Helsinki in 1991. Although Linux is a Unix-like operating system, it is not Unix, and it was developed from scratch. Next, I found Linux's open source operating system. This means you can change it and revise it as much as needed for the system to work for you. Additionally, all programs for Linux are created by users and are available for all other users to change, fix, and add to. Linux has many capabilities that Windows and Macs do not, and compared to both, Linux has better multitasking, virtual memory, shared libraries, TCP/IP networking, multi-user capability, and load balancing features. Now, these are many features, but it all sounds like rambling if you don't know computer language. So I wanted to figure out the benefits. From the 2 articles I just mentioned, I found some benefits. First, I found the total cost of ownership is relatively small. This means that a person doesn't have to pay a license or a royalty fee for the operating system. This fact may be why businesses and colleges like MTU use Linux or have Linux as one of their operating systems. Another benefit is that it is reliable. Once a person deploys a Linux-based solution, it just runs. There's no rebooting every week to flush out memory. Also, Linux has been developed over time and is still developing, so it's highly secure, scalable, and reliable. Another benefit is that Linux open source software code is freely available for examination, modification, redistribution. This means that anyone can use the software and fix it so it better suits their needs, which means no more sitting around waiting for a software vendor to fix a bug. Next, I found that another benefit is the programs used on Linux. These programs are written by programmers for free distribution, so they tend to be written well. This is because programmers do not want their ability to write code to be looked poorly upon. Now, after looking at some academic sources, I turned towards a Google search just to find out what people on the internet are saying. I looked at About.com, the Linux Newbie User Guide, and Suncoast Linux Users. And from here, I pretty much read the same information, but it was set for more computer illiterate people. Here I learned that another benefit to Linux is that it allows users a virus-free system. I learned that Linux is virus-free because it is too secure of an operating system for the viruses to spread with any degree of efficiency. Additionally, I learned that Linux has a very advanced graphical user interface, and it has dozens of free desktop applications, applets, tools, and smaller programs. Additionally, these websites told me that Linux is a great learning platform, and it has excellent networking capabilities. For my final divulgence into the world of Linux, I decided to interview one of the Linux users here on Tech's campus, Colin, to see if he could give me any more information. Colin told me he really enjoys Linux, and he gave me both some pros and cons of the system. The benefits, he said, are Linux is free, open source, updated frequently, and there are many different versions that you can get for free and try. The cons are that there are many different versions, which can get confusing if you are looking for a specific theme. Mainstream software is not really compatible with Linux, and the graphics card doesn't really support all the gaming that's become so popular. I asked him how easy it was for non-programmers. He said it's very easy, and it's similar to Windows and Macs, because you can get a pre-made distribution. And additionally, a terminal, which is where you write code, is not needed. Finally, I asked him why so many people are oblivious to Linux. He said that normally computers come with bundles, which means that the operating system is already included when you buy a computer. He also said that although Linux is free, which would make it popular, there are so many pirated copies of Windows and other systems that people just look for those due to their popularity. My searches for information on Linux actually led me on a quest that I would never expect myself to go on. Looking for the benefits of this operating system took me into a land of computer language and technology. The information I gained helped me conclude that Linux is a useful operating system, and its benefits can be seen mainly in big businesses and colleges, but also in personal computers. There are so many different parts of Linux operating system that I was unable to look into. Therefore, I would like to continue to search and discover more about Linux. This always developing and changing system is a big part of technology's future, and therefore I propose that research on the topic of Linux continue.